Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next event in our webinar series. Today we have a presentation by Thor Labs, Navid and Desarian. My name is Jamie Lockator. I'm the Environmental, Social, and Governance Manager at Thor Labs, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Navid is the Optics Business Development Manager at Thor Labs with over 10 years of experience at our company. He led the development of novel manufacturing processes here at Thor Labs and helped create the curriculum for the Optics Technology program at Sussex County Community College. Navid graduated with a BS in Applied Physics from the New Jersey Institute of Technology. Throughout his talk today, please feel free to submit any questions you have using the Q&A tool, and he'll be answering any of your questions at the end. At this time, I'd like to hand the talk off to Navid.
Thank you for that introduction, Jamie. Hello, everyone, and thank you for your time and attention today as we discuss workforce development in the context of the photonics industry. As you know, there's a critical issue facing our nation, and that's the shortage of skilled technicians. In this webinar, I'll make the case why a well-executed workforce development is our best solution to that issue. The reason why it's critical is key sectors like telecom, healthcare, defense, renewable energy rely on the productivity and innovation of our industry. Now, with 800 jobs going unfilled in the Northeast alone, the fuel that drives that innovation and productivity is running low. So with that in mind, in today's webinar, we're going to start by talking about workforce development, how it's evolved throughout the years into what we know it to be today. We'll jump into what the value of workforce development is to you as an individual, to you as a community, and the private sector. And then we'll jump into a case study between Thor Labs and SCC, Sussex County Community College, as well as our industrial partners, where we executed a workforce development initiative here in North New Jersey. And we'll wrap it up with ways you can get involved and help the mission succeed. I'll introduce the group known as AmeriCom. And just so we're on the same page, the mission here is to maintain a resilient and robust and agile manufacturing industry. So, what is workforce development? Workforce development is the strategic investment in education and training infrastructure. Keywords being strategic investment in training and education. The mission of that training and education is to keep up with the ever-changing demands of an economy. And I would argue with AI, robotics, and other factors, the pace of that change is growing exponentially, which only adds urgency to the need for well-executed workforce development initiatives. Fortunately for us, there's been a lot of research on how to do this well, and here you can see some of the evidence-based strategies for success. But what I want to focus on is the common denominator among all successful workforce development initiatives, and that's collaboration. Specifically collaboration between three key groups: local government, local community, and the private sector. These three groups, or pillars, are the foundation upon which the workforce infrastructure is going to be built upon. And it's critical that all three are involved, because historically, when one isn't or isn't as involved, sorry, I just got a note about my mic not working well. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Anyways, so these three pillars are where we're going to build a workforce infrastructure on top of. As I said, some early efforts where they failed to bring all three groups together either failed to launch or failed to meet this objective. So with that in mind, let's look at how workforce development has changed over the years. In the 50s, it was part of the conversation to reskill and upskill the workforce to meet the demand in the skilled trades post-World War. In the 60s, it was part of the initiative to fight poverty, as well as to reduce disparities between different socioeconomic backgrounds. In the 70s, it was applied to a bunch of different things, including high inflation, high unemployment, deal with the energy crisis. But something interesting started happening in the 80s. And that specifically is they realized that they're not achieving the ROI on these investments as measured by employment rate and pension and salaries post-graduation. So upon further review, and that's where some of those evidence-based strategies from the last slide came from, they realized the key problem was misalignment between the skill output of the education centers and the skill demand of the private sector. Former Labor Secretary Tom Perez of the Obama administration referred to this as the train and pray era, which I think sums it up pretty well. So from that point on, the private sector had a larger voice at the table in the workforce development discussion, which was just in time because as we approach the 90s, where also globalization is ramping up, which in this context means that communities had to compete in a global marketplace for businesses and investments. To help our communities be better equipped to compete in that global marketplace, there have been several key pieces of legislation passed, namely the Workforce Investment Act of '98. This piece of legislation went beyond funding education and training centers. It also established several job-related services like job search assistance, job counseling, as well as one-stop career centers where you can access all these services. In 2014, the Obama administration built on this with the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. This did something very interesting. It further empowered the private sector in the workforce development conversation, specifically by giving work-based learnings credit towards certificates and degrees, as well as funding more apprenticeship approaches. We actually, some of our graduates at SCC took advantage of this and tested out of some of the courses because they had work-based learning. We also strongly support the apprenticeship approach. Historically, apprenticeships, whether informal or formal, is how optics knowledge and photonics know-how has been passed down. But the new organized approach is much more efficient in a shorter time period. I think you can gain a lot more knowledge. It's also more structured, and the output of it is a very diversely skilled individual. If you're interested in participating and hosting an apprenticeship or enrolling as an apprentice, I highly recommend you reach out to Ross McCauley at MCC. He's been indispensable in this area, cutting through red tape and making it very simple for us and other companies to set up apprenticeship programs. So as we approach the current day in the 2020s, I would argue that supply chain challenges, advancement in AI and robotics, along with geopolitical instabilities, and the implementation of the CHIPS Act are all factors in the workforce development discussion. The CHIPS Act was going to incentivize several fabs built here in the States, which is great. But in this context, they're going to pull from the same talent pool of individuals to man those fabrications. So we're already behind in terms of the jobs we need to fill, and now there's going to be more demand for those individuals, further adding urgency to the need for a well-executed and planned workforce development initiative. So, in short, workforce development historically has been a conversation about our schools, our community, and ultimately the strength of our community. Now, let me get very specific about what its value is to you. So, if you're an industry partner, I can maybe hear you thinking, well, Nav, I have a global supply chain that's stable. I have factories overseas that are fine. Why should I invest in this? To that I say, that's great. We have a diverse supply chain here at Thorlabs as well. But we have to learn one of the many lessons from the pandemic, and we have to learn it once. And that's the importance of a resilient domestic supply chain to mitigate unforeseen disruptions. Workforce development will also give you the pipeline, the fuel of those specialized technicians to grow your company and succeed right here. Also, those employees are going to be happier because you're choosing to invest in them and invest in their futures. Happier employees tend to stick around longer and overall improve the mood of the workplace. And by sticking around longer, they save you time and effort in recruiting and training. Plus, these employees, as they gain new skills like critical thinking, the scientific approach, because they're doing the task every day, now they have those tools, including metrology, you're going to see micro process improvements everywhere. which will add up to one big efficiency. Now, could you get there other ways? Sure. Throw a couple engineers at it, a couple value stream maps, and get to the same end goal. But some of those efficiencies may not be worth that effort. But it's a win, it's a byproduct of you investing in your employees' workforce development. Another factor is that, again, it shows that you're really part of the community. You're investing where you are in that community and helping it grow, as opposed to companies that come in, set up shop, use up all the resources, and then move on to the next lowest tax bracket community. If you're an aspiring professional looking for a career change or a new career, as I said, there are a lot of opportunities. But these are high-tech jobs, and you need skills and tools and know-how. These programs are a very efficient way for you to get that information. Also, if you have a formal degree, you're able to negotiate a higher salary, which leads to financial stability and overall better quality of life. If you're someone that likes to travel, the shortage in this industry is global, so it can take you across the country, across the world if you so choose. In fact, Alexis Vogt up in the MCCC, she has the Premier program and the contact. She's been reached out to by companies in Germany asking for her graduates. Another value to you as an individual is that these programs are comprehensive. So it's not just the technical skills, it's also the career advice skills and the soft skills you need for increased job satisfaction and personal growth. Beyond the self, a value of this to you is that you're contributing to that greater mission, which is maintaining a robust and resilient industrial manufacturing base. Up next, communities. Now, arguably, communities have the most to gain from these workforce development initiatives. Specifically, these initiatives cultivate one of your most valuable assets, which is a skilled workforce. That skilled workforce attracts investments in business, which starts to create a positive growth cycle for the community, which is sustainable and leads to long-term prosperity. These are good-paying jobs. With that comes improved quality of life, better access to healthcare, education, and housing. And these workforce development programs level the playing field. So groups of different socioeconomic backgrounds can access those better paying jobs, which reduce unemployment and particularly underemployment, which leads to greater social mobility and enables a more inclusive society. But perhaps most importantly, what workforce development does for the community is adds resilience, specifically resilience against economic shock. If you have the infrastructure built already and something unforeseen happens and you need to retrain your workforce, well, it's a matter of turning the ship, not building a new ship. So now that we're all convinced workforce development is amazing and we're all ready to help with the mission, let's jump into a case study and we can see how workforce development can get off the ground and some of the challenges associated with it. So our approach to workforce development, like many, has evolved over the years. We use traditional methods and still do, like ads, recruiting, job fairs, word of mouth. But the spark that we needed to change or to add to that, there's a story there. And with most stories worth telling about optics, it starts in Rochester, New York. It was fall of 2018 where Paul Malone and Jim Kapolakos attended a symposium hosted by the New York Photonics group, where director of the IBAS at DoD, Adele Radcliffe, gave an inspiring speech about the importance of skilled, trained optics technicians. She really emphasized the need for a healthy manufacturing and defense industrial base, as it is essential to economic strength and national security. So that message, backed with the executive order, really resonated with us. So Paul Malone took that back to New Jersey, had a conversation at the highest levels here at Thor Labs with Alex, Jen Cable, and we decided to act. And our approach was a collaborative one. So in a matter of weeks, we hosted local industry partners, including NRAD Optics, ESCO, Coherent, special optics, as well as voices from the local community represented by Sussex County Community College and our local representative, Josh Gaheimer. So this group came together to advise on how we're going to act on this looming workforce shortage. With their guidance, we developed a curriculum. Our North Star, our goal with the curriculum was that any graduate would contribute positively on day one of employment in any area, which was a tall ask, but an important one so that everyone in the group benefits equally from this initiative. We also chose to keep the math very practical, as to not deter anyone maybe previously traumatized by mathematics. So, with a lot of work and help from SCC, our curriculum was approved in the spring of 2019, and we started teaching that fall. And then, the pandemic happened in winter of 2020, and, a program that had a lot of opportunities to fail, especially that event, stopping teaching because of the pandemic, succeeded, in my opinion, through sheer will of one person, and that was Paul Malone. When everybody was unsure if we could proceed and how we should proceed, he was the voice that we will go on, we will succeed, and this is not the end. So I'm happy to say that we did proceed, and we're looking at our third graduating class coming up in a few weeks and record enrollment this fall. So I'm skipping over a lot of hard stuff that we had to deal with, and I'm going to get to that in a later slide. But first, I'm going to jump into our curriculum. So here on the left, you can see an outline of a proposed 2-year degree in optics technology. We start with a class that we call Fundamentals of Optics 1. One of the major feedback that we got asking prospective students, why do you want to enroll in this, was, well, I do tasks X, Y, Z every day, but I'm not sure why I do that and where it goes and what happens later. So our approach was, okay, we're going to teach them about the theory, show them some cool concepts, some hands-on demos, and try to stay away from the math as much as possible. And it went really well. In fact, this class is being taught at multiple high schools right now. Next up, we have Standards of Optics, and that's a course where we talk about the ISO and the mil spec, drawing interpretation overall, as well as safety. Lastly, for that semester, we have Measurement Analysis 1. In this class, we cover all the fundamental metrology tools you need, from what is a caliper and how to use it, all the way up to some basic interferometry techniques. Next up, we have Ray Optics in the second semester, and that's Geometrical Optics Ray Tracing, pretty fun class. And we also have the second Metrology Analysis class, and that focuses primarily on some of the more advanced setups in interferometry, as well as advanced aspheric measurements, using profilometers, contact, non-contact, as well as maintaining those equipment. That's a theme in our program, is the students need to learn how to maintain and take care of the equipment so they continue working well for us long term. In the second year, third semester, is when things start getting fun. A lot of hands-on stuff, especially with the conventional manufacturing class, where students can learn a variety of skills in blocking, grinding, and polishing, as well as the strategy behind how to grind and how much to take off in one step and what to look for. We really emphasize on the grinding because we believe that's really critical in the overall cycle time and quality of the end. Next up, we have Optics Material 1. This course was a direct result of the conversation between the consortium partners and industrial partners. Not all the partners dealt with the basic glasses, BK7, Q-Silica. They had some exotic materials that they dealt with. So what we did to address that in this class, we have a 50-50 split almost. The first half is, what is a material? How do you look up its property? What do those properties mean? And what decisions do you have to make about your production based on those properties? And the second half serves another need, and that's optical coating technicians. We hope to turn this to its own subtrack very soon, but we have a small coating chamber at SCC that students can learn how to coat, as well as, very importantly, coating prep. Wrapping up that semester is CNC Optics Manufacturing. As the name suggests, in that class, students learn how to make optics using the approach. So again, it's machine maintenance, and as well as using the machine to execute grinding and polishing spherical ovens. In the last semester, we have the second fundamentals of optics class. We saved some of the scarier topics for that last semester so we don't scare anybody and keep our enrollment up all the way through the end. But it is a valuable class, and there's a lot of key concepts that we cover there. We also have our second conventional class, where we get into handling some of the more advanced classes or crystals like black fluoride, crystal quartz, calcium fluoride, as well as different blocking techniques like optical contacting and different polishing methods like double-sided. So lastly, second to last, we have our second CNC optics course, and that one is all about A-spheres. It's a very thorough, detailed class about A-sphere manufacturing, the approach you need to take in grinding and polishing, and also the corrective polishing cycle, which is critical. And we wrap it up with another class that came out of the consortium advisement, which is the Advanced Assembly Systems class, and that, as the name suggests, it's about assemblies. So different techniques of assembly, as well as different tools involved with that. Again, our graduates, we want them to be able to go into any department in one of these companies and be able to make a positive impact on day one. This might seem like a lot to somebody. It might be a long time commitment. So with the help of SCC, we also were accredited for shorter, condensed certificate tracks. And you can see two of them listed here, metrology and CNC. These are really good for someone who's maybe pigeonholed in their current role, which is no fault of anybody really. That's just an efficient thing to do in the current manufacturing phase. Grinding, polishing, quality, coding. These are all segments separated. But if you want to diversify your skills, if you want to future-proof your career, you can jump into one of these tracks and learn something different or gain more skills in the area that you're already in. We also have a conventional track that's not here, and as I said, we're looking to add a coding and a fiber track. So there were a lot of challenges between attending the symposium and launching the classes, and here I want to get into some of them. But before that, I want to point out that these challenges are not over. And in fact, they're not only ongoing for us, they're also ongoing for all the other programs across the country that are launched or trying to get launched. Amanda Meyer in Boulder, the program at FRCC, Front Range Community College, she has these issues. Carolyn McMorrin in Valencia College in Central Florida, although I think her program is going to be really awesome. Her 15-week approach is very interesting to me, but she's also experiencing some of these challenges, and even Alexis up in Rochester. So, first problem is securing qualified adjuncts, which is particularly difficult because you have a shortage of skilled workers in an area that you're trying to teach. So your most skilled or most ideal candidate to teach the class is probably very busy. So one thing that we did here at Thor Labs to incentivize the talent pool for adjuncts was to allow them to teach the courses on Thor Labs clock. So they're getting a paycheck from Thor Labs, they're also getting a paycheck from the community college. Next up was facilities. We need space and equipment to teach all these courses. And we were too impatient to wait and source those and set it up at the college. We wanted to get up and running. And it was a good thing that we did with everything that happened. So our approach there was to volunteer our shop, volunteer our machine, the SCC for the course of classes to be taught. For the first couple of semesters, couple of years, the classes were, at least the hands-on classes, were entirely in our lab. Another incentive to boost enrollment, because enrollment has been a challenge for us as well, getting the word out, was we allowed our enrollees not only to be paid for them to attend the courses, so the courses are paid for by Thor Labs if you work for Thor Labs, we also allow them to stay on the clock. So again, students are also getting paid by Thor Labs while they're getting their degree paid for. This might sound like a not very impactful, but if you think about it, you know, people might be stuck in this whirlwind of, you know, I need to provide for my family, I need to do more, inflation, but I can't stop working overtime to go to this class. It's a death spiral. This small change eliminates that and will have generational impact. So these challenges were overcome as I outlined with what Thor Labs did, but we also had to solve some immediate successes. For example, tasks previously reserved for engineers were organically being pushed to these technicians even before the classes had ended. That sample scenario is an email goes out, there's an engineer, a product manager, and technician on it, something needs to be done that typically the engineer does, maybe it's a piece of metrology. Now that technician has the tools to go stand in front of that machine and at least try to figure it out. Maybe they didn't learn it specifically in class, and maybe they won't get it the first time, the third time, but eventually they do. And you know who's very motivated to make sure they succeed? It's that engineer that no longer has to do that. That engineer now can add value for what he was hired to do, whether it's process development, products, or whatever. Another one, as I already mentioned, is that improved critical thinking and scientific approach, which lead to these micro improvements in efficiency and allow a higher level of dialogue with your technicians. It gives them the tools and the words to communicate the improvement they see, the potential for improvement. So with that in mind, I should also mention that a lot of our graduates assumed leadership positions. They were either promoted to team leads or moved on to other bigger roles. Again, none of this was incentivized ahead of time, although they asked. It was just the right thing to do. They earned it. So, long term, I think by doing this, we've established the framework for a pipeline of skilled technicians. We've enhanced our community engagement and collaboration, and as a byproduct, I think we've strengthened the U.S. manufacturing base for defense purposes. So what's next? Well, I'm happy to announce that SCCC has received a $1 million grant to upgrade their facility where we're going to be teaching these labs. So that's very exciting, which will allow for space and funding for some advanced fabrication techniques like magnetoreological finishing, single point diamond turning, and robotics and optics. I want to wrap up this portion of the talk, which is a case study with a quote from President Obama. He said, "These jobs are within the grasp of the American people. If we give them a shot, we show them the way, let them know how they can pay for it while raising a family. They will do the rest." So that brings me to my last slide. What is the ask? The ask was investment in education and infrastructure. I think I gave several examples why you should be motivated to do that. But specifically what I'm asking is for you to be an advocate. Raise awareness about the industry, raise awareness about the education opportunities, the pathways that are there. If you can, offer your time to your local chapter as an adjunct, an advisor. If you're a company out there and you see a need for a similar program in your area, I highly recommend you work with the good folks at Americom. They were selected specifically with the mission of building and sustaining America's precision optics manufacturing base. They have a playbook, an image of that here on how to do this. They learned from us, they learned from MCC up in Rochester, and they're currently working with Front Range Community College and Valencia College to launch programs there. Ask them about their ecosystem model. It's very interesting. So in closing, I would just again like to ask our industrial partners to get involved. You can be the Thor Labs to SCCC. You can be the Excelitas to Front Range Community College. You can be the Yanoptic or Lockheed Martin to Valencia. You can be the SIDOR to MCC. It is us coming together that makes this succeed. We have to work together. Thank you.
Okay.
You don't need a lot.
Okay.
You need a little compound.
Okay.
A lot of the stuff that we do, it's very technical, and if you don't want to confuse somebody by just sprouting random nonsense like, oh yeah, vacuum deposition, E-beam, and all that jazz, you know, it gets really overwhelming. So we just this is what we do.
I like my job. I like what I'm doing now.
Learning all the different materials that they make and the products that they make would just fascinate me. Knowing that it goes into the Defense Department for items as a veteran sparked an interest for me as well.
For me, the best part about this job is the team I work with. The people that I work with.
And everybody I work with.
Come in, laugh, have fun, and get my work done.
They're more than willing to teach you what they're doing.
I'm constantly learning every day.
Coming in every day, there's always something new to do. I'm never on like the same project.
I can come in one day and thinking I'm going to be working on one thing and then just see that something else is more important, but just those changes keeps me on my toes.
It's never boring, it's always interesting, and there's a lot of problem solving that goes into it.
So I just remember the first time something actually clicked, it was like, boom, like, got it.
You never know what you're going to get, so it's exciting to meet the challenges.
I think the growth opportunity I've had are actually my wow moments.
Figuring out how complex light actually is.
The time I saw a prism for the first time.
When the James Webb telescope started showing pictures back.
I would say is when I broke my first part, I realized how much I actually cared about optics.
Seeing the Newton's rings when you're contacting, it's basically like a rainbow, and when you press the one side of the optic, it disappears.
We've sent stuff out into outer space. That's really cool.
There's so much to learn. There's so much to do.
Optics are literally everywhere you look, from the camera in this lens right here to lasers and microscopes.
The funding's there, the technology's there, and I would even say the popularity is starting to increase also.
We're now moving into seeing a movement of a broad diversity. When we bring people in on tours, there is at least going to be one other person where it's like, hey, they look like me, I could do this too.
I was very lucky to be exposed to optics at such a young age, but it is an opportunity for a lot of young people to come in and thrive in this field.
If I was to describe optics with only emojis, it would be the scientist emoji, the brain emoji, and the party emoji.
The monocle smart-looking guy.
The inquisitive guy. The monocle.
Anything to do with magic, whether it's a witch or magician or crystal ball.
The wand emoji.
A magician.
Definitely magic.
The brain emoji for sure.
I'm gonna go with the brain. A lot of big brain stuff here.
Just the plain old smile emoji. Everywhere I go within the industry, I tend to just have a smile on my face, and I'm just pleasantly happy to be there.
I feel like I'm more confident. I feel smarter. Good. All right. Cut.
So I have to extend a big thanks to our adjuncts that made this possible: Matt Debris, Dan Sapio, Sarah Hoba, Sam Suarez, John Norton from InVad Optics, as well as our support team: Alexis Vogt, Tom Batley, Josanne Natali, and Kirsten Noble. And specifically for this webinar, I want to thank Michelle Marion, who helped make these slides wonderful, as well as our marketing team here, and Jamie, who was part of this adventure from day one. And now she's hosting a webinar about it. So thank you, Jamie.
Indeed, it certainly has been an adventure. Appreciate that call out. We have a few questions here for you. I'm going to start with the first one that came in that addresses that the degree program seems like it's a great option for younger people that are looking to enter the workforce. But what are the options for people who might be further along in their careers to develop what they already have their foundation in?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I would point you to the certificate tracks. If you know the industry and you want to gain knowledge in a particular area, you can see if the track is available for you. And again, I really like Carolyn's approach in Florida with her 15-week course. And I don't know, maybe we'll look to implement that here as well.
And as a follow-up to that, are there options for taking remote classes, and are there flexible lab times for individuals that might have to participate after the traditional workday or remotely?
Great question. Yeah, so our classes are held at 4 o'clock. That's typically ideal for anyone who's working the day shift. We don't have any remote options available currently. We explored it during the pandemic, and it was hard to do with the lab specifically. But I know MCC is offering remote classes. So I encourage you to look at them if your need is immediate.
Thank you. Another question about expanding the reach of the program. So how important is it for Sussex County Community College and Thor Labs to be involved in the high schools and the middle schools in our county for photonics? And is this a goal that we have set or that we should set for the future?
Yeah, it's imperative. We have to start as early as possible, just to raise awareness about what the industry is and the possible pathways. Somebody should learn about Thor Labs in their 4th year of NJIT.
And how can employees that are in the industry in the vicinity of the optics training programs help you with these outreach activities?
Yeah, just reach out to me directly or to the college. And if you have an idea, we'd love to hear it. If you just want to help, yeah, there's plenty to do.
Do you have data on the success rate from the program, such as the number of people who obtain a position in the photonics fields after they graduate, and how quickly do they obtain their jobs?
I think a better stat would be that no one graduates without a job. They tend to get sniped while they're in the program. In fact, it's a challenge to make sure they finish their degree. But yeah, it's very easy to get a job, but it's important to finish these degrees so you have the tools for long-term stability in your career.
We have a question here from Jim from Keene State in New Hampshire, who, number one, appreciates your presentation, but is also looking to build a similar program, possibly up at their university. So he's curious about the approach and what proximity is best when you're developing a program like this.
Yeah, proximity is key. That's exactly where I would refer you to AmeriCom and the good folks there. They have a structured approach in how to decide where and when to set up a program. I believe they're already working with key. At least they're exploring.
Yep. And another related question. So supporting these programs, such as the one that you started at Sussex County Community College and maybe Keene might be starting, what role do optics and photonics companies play in that? Can they donate equipment, time? What do you find the most helpful?
Yeah, it's just being involved, be part of the dialogue. That's a good start, be in the conversation between the college, the AmeriCom, and other organizations. And when it comes for action, step up. A lot of people are comfortable attending a meeting, but the action items fall short. To nobody's fault. We all have a lot going on. But again, this is an investment, and you're investing with your time, sometimes with financial support, sometimes with equipment donation. But it's really your time that we're asking for first. And the return is everything I cited in this presentation.
So I just got a little call out message here that Keene is actually only 2 hours away from our Londonderry office. So maybe there's some collaboration that can take place there.
Sounds good.
Just wanted to make a point of that. Another question, are state and local or federal agencies starting to get involved in the optics technicians training? And if so, at what level?
They are. They funded AmeriCom with millions of dollars to establish that manufacturing base for precision optics manufacturing. So the funding is there, the structure is there. We need your assistance. One, to call out for the demand if you see it, and then also help the program launch and sustain long term.
And another question for you, Naveed. So many are coming in. This is exciting. Are industry equipment manufacturers investing in building these programs as well? And at what capacity are they investing in helping build these programs?
Yeah, great question. They are. They can't give away machines for free, although I've asked. But they're giving deep discounts. They're jumping through hoops to make sure we get the equipment on time so we can start our classes that matches the school's timeline. And I should give a shout out to Satislow, Taylor Hobson, Amatech, OptiPro. They've all been very helpful, as well as I know.
Great. And I have a question that is tangentially related to your presentation. I don't know if you know the answer. I'll put you on the spot. Is there an equivalent of AmeriCom for the semiconductor industry?
I hope not. I don't know. But anything we can do to slow them down. I'm just joking. But no, I'm not sure.
Right. Maybe we can do some research into that one and get back to the person who asked the question.
Absolutely.
Right. I don't see any other questions coming in for today. I'll give everyone another moment to enter a question if they have it before we wrap up. Oh. I have another question from Kirsten from AmeriCom. Are there any industry associations that are getting involved with the programs?
Yes. I don't want to make a mistake and call out somebody who isn't, so I'm going to take a note on that and get back to you.
Sounds good. Okay. Well, I think that might be all we have for today. It looks like all of the questions have been answered. Naveed, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. It was wonderful. Just for the people who are attending today, I want to let you know that our next webinar will be on June 14th, and that will focus on our Raman spectrometer. You can register for the event on our website at www.thorlabs.com/webinars. And thanks for your attendance, and we hope to see you at a future webinar. Thank you.